Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. If this is your first time, my name is Moses. I do teach cybersecurity and programming languages. In the last video, I talked about what Unix and Linux are. Now it's time to actually get Linux running on your machine. And don't worry, because I'm not going to wipe your computer. So I'm going to use what is called virtual machine, which is basically a computer inside your computer. What do you need before you start? So you need at least 4 GB of RAM and about 20 GB of free disk space. You can just press Windows key plus E. It will bring about File Explorer. You will come to this PC section. So right click on this PC section here, come and click on properties. So once you do that, it will expose some of the properties that your laptop has. So you can see yourself, this laptop I'm using, it has 16 GB of RAM. So at least it meets the requirement for running virtual machines, because I can assign at least 2 GB and I remain with substantial RAM. And also the storage, you need at least 20 GB of free disk space. When you look at this, you realize I have 477 GB. So out of this, I can set aside 20 GB for virtual machine. So one thing you need to realize is that the more RAM you have, the better. So these are some of the things I have. So I'm running i5 8th generation. The amount of RAM is 16. I can get up to 2 GB and I will remain with substantial storage or RAM. And also I have a storage capacity of 132 GB, which is free, which I can set aside 20 GB for virtual machine. So make sure you have sufficient RAM and hard disk to host virtual machine. So we are going to use what is called a virtual box. Now, where do we get this virtual box? So you'll come to search bar again, just look for any browser of your choice. For me, I'm using Brave. Just type Brave there. This is my browser. Select it. So when it opens, I want to type VirtualBox. That is the first software we have to download. Why am I using VirtualBox? It is free. There is no license that you're required to supply in order to use it. And another good thing is that it runs on Windows, it runs on Mac, and it also runs on Linux. And so it will be very perfect for this setup today. So I'll just type VirtualBox. Don't worry about full URL, just type VirtualBox. Now you can see we have a suggestion here. Just press enter. You'll see there is an option here, and we have a site. It is called virtualbox.org, and just click that one. You'll see something like this. So it's a powerful open source virtualization software. So we'll just head straight to download. Click on download. Then we have options here. So in these options, you're being asked to download the appropriate VirtualBox setup file. So for example, I have Windows. So depending with the type of operating system you have, if you have Linux, you download for Linux distributions. If you have Solaris, you'll download for that. If you have Mac, you'll download for Mac. But for us, I have Windows, so I'll go to Windows host, click on it, and let's wait for a minute. It is telling me where do I want to save it. I will say on downloads and click save. So once you do that, downloads will begin, and when you look at up there, you realize that it is downloading. So depending with how fast your internet speed is, it should take at least less than 5 minutes when you're downloading this software. So let's wait for it to download. So we will not wait for it to, we can go to something else. So in order to run a virtual machine in your laptop, you need two software. You need the VirtualBox, which is like a computer inside your computer, and you need an operating system. And the operating system of choice we are going to use is called, and the operating system of choice we are going to use, it's called linuxmint. Why do I choose linuxmint? For one, it's very light on resource usage. That means if you have an old laptop, linuxmint should be capable to run in the virtual machine. And also it needs 4 GB. It can run even with 1 GB of RAM. So if you have 8 GB, linuxmint can be the best option for you. That is the amount of RAM you have. So let's go ahead and download linuxmint. So I'm seeing VirtualBox, it's almost done. Let me come and download linuxmint. Come to search bar, type linuxmint. The first option you get, click on it. You will be presented with a download button. Just click on download. So the site is linuxmint.com. So click download. You'll see we have options here. So for example, first of all, we have a Cinnamon edition. This is the most popular one used. But for us, we will go for light, simple and efficient one, which is a XFCE edition. This is very light on resource usage. Even they are saying it here. It's lightweight, desktop environment. It doesn't support as many features as Cinnamon, but it's lighter on resource usage. So this is the one you want to start with. Remember, we want to learn Linux administration first of all. We want to see how the commands work in Linux. So it's good we start from the beginning. We see how to set up, and we also see how to run Linux commands. So for this, just click on downloads, and you'll be presented with the size. So you can see it is 2.8 GB. So this is very, very light operating system. So downloads mirrors are always down there. Just pick the first choice, and we wait for download to begin. Wait for download to begin. So as we are waiting for downloads to begin, remember we downloaded VirtualBox. VirtualBox is very important. Why? It enables you to test out and also to set up your pen testing environment or Linux pen testing and cybersecurity environment in your one machine. Because let's face it, you might not have the resources to have physical setup where you can set up a perfect lab. So this virtual machine is there to assist you so that at least you can get to practice these things comfortably in your laptop. Now, Our linuxmint is ready to download. Just save it in the download section, click save. We wait for download to begin. So depending on how fast your machine is, it can take up to, let's say, 10 minutes. But I had already downloaded this file, so I'll just pause it. But for you, make sure you download it, pause the video, download, finish, and then you can continue. You come to VirtualBox. You need to install the setup. Remember, when you are installing VirtualBox for the first time in your machine, you need to enable virtualization in the BIOS setup. I'll create another video for that. But in order for VirtualBox to work properly in your machine or laptop or desktop, you need to enable virtualization on the BIOS. Very, very important. So for this, I had already downloaded and installed VirtualBox. So I'll just come and search. So we need to install linuxmint in our local machine. So I'll just come and search VirtualBox because I already have it. So I'll just type VirtualBox. So this is it, Oracle VirtualBox. Click on it. Let's wait for it to come. So I already have another version of linuxmint, but for this I will start a new one. So how do you go about it? First of all, you will come to New. There is this icon here for New. Left click on it. Pop-up will appear like this. So in this section, you need to specify the name of the VirtualBox. In this case, I will say it is called Mint. Then you will come and choose the ISO image. Now, what is an ISO image? Remember, when you download linuxmint, let me go to downloads. I already have I already have the software. Just scroll down to where I downloaded it. This is, just search linuxmint. Just say Linux. So this is it, linuxmint. So when I right click on it, point right click, pop-up will appear, choose properties. You'll see it has a file extension of .iso. Why is that? So, and first of all, what is an ISO extension supposed to mean when it comes to installing software? So, an ISO file is a single file that contains an exact copy of an entire operating system. So when you have an ISO file, in other words, you have the operating system. So the only thing remaining, it is installing it in your machine. So that is it. So we'll come back to our VirtualBox. We said the name is Mint, and then I'll select the ISO file. In this case, it is in, I will come to Other section there, and then I'll choose Linux Mint. I'll select Open. I'll uncheck this button that says Proceed with unattended installation. That means just leave everything as default. So we don't want to leave everything as default, because you have to make sure you specify the amount of RAM you have or you want to use here based on the total amount you have. For example, you cannot specify 16 GB and you have 16 GB as the total, or 8 GB and you have 8 GB as the total. So you need to specify at least 2 GB from 8 GB, and also the space, is it 25 GB or something like that, under the hardware section. So you'll come here and specify the amount of RAM you want, or the base memory, and also you specify the amount of hard disk space or SSD space you want the virtual machine to have. So after you've specified these two things, you can click Finish, and then you start the operating system. So you want to do the installation now. So click on start. It will start powering up. It's telling me here this side. So we wait for some second. So remember, in order to run virtual machine in your laptop, you need to enable virtualization on the BIOS. So it has started. Waiting for it. Right. Let me expand the window. It's telling me welcome to linuxmint 22.3. It is a 64-bit operating system. By default, just picks the first option if you don't select, and then installation starts. Let's wait for some second. So installation process has started. So let's wait for some second. This is live operating system. We have not yet installed it in the space we allocated, that is 25 GB. When you look at this location here, we allocated 25 GB here, so it is still empty. So right now the operating system, it is still on optical drive, so we need to install the operating system. So you can see we have here 2 GB. So how do we install? You just come to your linuxmint. You'll see a disk-like icon up there. So just double left click the icon. So let's wait for some second. So you can see here we have the languages. So once you click on that disk-like icon up there, it will bring about this install window. Select the language which is English. Then click on continue. Then it will ask you which keyboard layout do you want. So for us, we just want the default keyboard, which is US keyboard. Just click continue. Then it will ask you install multimedia codecs. So multimedia codecs are required to play some video formats and properly render some websites. So you can choose to skip this part, which you can install later during updates installation. So for this, we can just skip and say continue. Then it will ask you which installation type do you want. So currently there's no any other operating system. So if there is no any other operating system, or if you want just to install the operating system in the entire allocated space, just say erase and install linuxmint. So click install now. Then it will ask you to select the region. So by default, we just leave at Nairobi. Next, or you can select any region of your choice. So my region is Nairobi, so I'll just leave it at Nairobi. Then it will ask you to specify your username for your machine. So I'll just say administration. that is administration, or let's say admin. I don't want to write something big, just admin, computer name, I'll just say admin lab, and then the password. So always it's good practice you choose a very strong password when you are setting up your operating system. Password, you can always change. It's telling me this is one of the weak passwords. Just leave it. Require my password to log in. Yes, I'll continue. So it is telling me I have to select another name because this one is reserved for. I'll just add one there. Admin 1, and then click continue. You can encrypt here. You can encrypt home folder for security purposes, but for us, just want to see how do you install a virtual machine or a virtual operating system in a virtual box. So we wait for some minutes, and then you'll see installation kicking in. So it is progressing, as you can see. So you have to give this process, let's say 30 minutes maximum, depending on how fast your computer is. Otherwise it should be done, let's say if your laptop is very fast. So we wait for it to install, and then after installation we will continue. We have a welcome screen, we have a file explorer like Windows, so similarities are there. So in our next video we will look at commands in Linux. This is the terminal here. So we will be looking at commands that are used in Linux in our next video. So from here, what you can just do, you can just pause the machine, and we will continue in the next video where we'll be looking at Linux commands. So we've seen how to install. You need two softwares. You need to have VirtualBox, and you need to have linuxmint ISO file. So from there you can install in a VirtualBox, and the minimum amount of RAM you need it is 2 GB and 20 GB storage space. So once you do that, you'll be ready to go. So from here we'll continue in the next video where we'll be looking at Linux commands. So those commands we will be running them in this terminal. This is our terminal. We'll be running here Linux commands. So what you do, just come to machine to pause. Machine, you say pause, and then you come up here, you close. It will tell you what do you want to do, save the machine state or power off the machine. Just say save the machine state, click OK, and you wait for it to stop. So it's done. So we will continue in the next video where we'll be looking at commands. So to begin again, you just come and click on start. So that is it about linuxmint installation in VirtualBox. So see you in the next video where we'll be talking about Linux commands.